Spend or save? It feels like one of those ongoing conflicts that we all deal with. I think with a lot of us, it's stuck between trying to embrace that culture of you only live once versus the other side, this constant voice that says, save, save, save.
100%.
Trying to get that balance, is that an easy thing to do, is it?
Not at all. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's easier said than done. And you'll hear people from the professional world go, like you said, save, 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 whereas really all you want to do is you work so hard, you really just want to spoil yourself. So everything in moderation, I think, is the key. And I think the other point would be, maybe there's two big points here. The one is have a plan, right? You don't have to have a budget that's set out per line item, but if you have a plan, a rough plan of sorts in terms of what comes in, what comes out, what do you spend on, what do you need to hold back for your future, that's important. And then I think the second thing is money is a taboo subject, but often we need to break that taboo and talk to people about it. People are in the same situation as you. Talk about how do you spend, how do you save, how do you budget. Helps a little bit.
As an investment specialist, what are some of the tools or tips that you've been using to navigate the balance between spending and saving?
Okay, let me give it to you first from my professional perspective and then personal, because personal is what people care about. So from a professional perspective, I'm an accountant at heart, so I love a good budget. So I've literally got the budget, the income, the expenses, line by line. No one loves that. Even my husband, who is an accountant, doesn't love that. So that doesn't work for everyone. But from a personal perspective, it's really a simple rule. We call the 50-30-20 rule. So 50% of your salary is spent on needs, 30% is spent on wants, and 20% on savings. And if you kind of get that right most of the months, you should be okay.
Okay, let's actually go to the 50-30-20. That's right?
Perfect, yes.
So 50%, what things would you put in that 50% needs bucket?
Perfect. So your needs bucket would be something like your groceries, your rent, say, for example. That would be healthcare, so your medical aid. So really the things that just get us by on the basics. Your wants are all the good things. So every now and then you do need a little bit of a spoil, a shop, coffee, or tea, or going out with friends. So that's kind of just briefly those two buckets. And really, if you think about it, that's 80%. Half of it is the really important stuff, and 30% is the stuff that makes us happy.
Well, look, I actually appreciate the simplicity, because I think a lot of us battle with needs and wants, what takes more priority.
Yes.
But if you do it as a 50% goes into your needs,
Yes.
and the 30% goes into your wants,
Yes.
at least you get to live a little, right?
Yes, you need to live a little. We work hard.
And this 20%,
Yes.
what's in the 20%?
Well, the 20% is probably what people are most afraid of. It seems like the hard bucket. But if this 20%, like I say, I treat it like a debit order, comes off my account and it's gone, lives in another bank account really. That 20% we need to break down into maybe 3 buckets to make it easy. The 20% is broken down into first emergency funds, so you need to build that up. So what lives in your emergency funds? Okay, you're going to have a flat tire, so for instance, you need to fix your tire, or the geyser burst. So really rainy day expenses. But what's important about starting to build up this buffer from your 20% is it's personal for everyone. So you need to talk to your advisor and go, this is my lifestyle, this is what I need. And I think one more thing on the emergency expenses, that's not for a good time. So you need to go back to your wants bucket, the 30% bucket. This 20% bucket really start with emergency funds. Once you've built up your buffer on emergency funds, the next step, still every single month on this 20% bucket, because you're letting this grow basically each month. The next step out there is to squash debt. And this part is a hard part, okay? Because something like credit card debt, really expensive. You should squash that as soon as you can. An advisor that I love dealing with, she mentions that your credit card, it's not a target. The limit is not a target, so don't try and max it out. So try and squash that as soon as possible. Things like car debt, you should try and squash that as soon as possible too. And then we do have healthy debt like bonds, against your home loans. Those are harder to squash, but try your best to try and get that down. You don't have to get it perfect, but probably the bad debt is what we'd call it, is the credit card. And maybe if you got a loan against your car, that kind of stuff needs to be squashed. And then the last part, which we hate talking about because sometimes it feels like you're adulting a little bit, is probably one of the most important buckets, which is really the insurance part. So this is life insurance, this is severe illness cover, all those kind of things, very important. If you were to lose your income tomorrow, because we don't think about that, we think everything's going to be okay, but life teaches us that things can happen in a second. So to make sure you've got that life insurance covered, you've got some sort of retirement annuity, those things are very important because we are saving for the future, and that's what that 20% is helping us do.
But then what about long term, as in where does that come into the picture?
Okay, great. This is the part I love about because, investments. Once you've got that 20% bucket has covered your emergency fund, it has helped to squash some unhealthy debt, and you have your retirement bucket or your insurance bucket in place, then you start talking about investments. And there we can start really simply with unit trusts. Those are easy, they're accessible. And again, you need to talk to your advisor to help you understand what is the best investment for you. And then from there, once we've really made it, we can go super fancy. We can go into private investments, we're going alternative investments like structured products.
And I take it as well, once we've got that long-term bucket sorted and you've got your unit trust, your alternative investments in place, you probably have enough money where you can actually drop the insurance component.
Never. You cannot drop the insurance component. The insurance component is so important. We forget that there's certain things, and again, you're going to have to talk to your financial planner, certain things that have tax implications. So it's very important to make sure that that insurance bucket is still in place.
All right. But what about, I've actually got enough money, so whatever eventuality happens, I can actually pay for it using my savings that I've put away for the long term. Is that okay?
No, there's a thing called a rainy day. You never know what the future will look like. None of us ever expected that something like the pandemic would happen, and there we were sitting at home. So that bucket you can't do away with. And the beautiful thing about the 50, 30, 20 is once you do it and the 20 starts fulfilling itself, you don't have to do much after that. Think about it. 80% is left to do whatever you want to do. And if you are really cash flush, that's amazing. And what I like to say, especially in our country, is to pay it forward a little bit. So if you're that cash flush, try and look around where you can help someone else.
Bronwen, thanks. I think we should have had this coffee years ago. It would help me, definitely.
Thank you so much for the time.